Hello there guys, and welcome to Mad Doc Minis, and welcome back to the airing cupboard. And in this video I'm going to be talking a little bit about scalping and the problems associated with that, and in the second part of this video I'm going to put together and basically paint a Warhammer proxy, which links into what I'm going to be talking about with the scalping. So it's kind of like a two-part video, so you can kind of like tune into either of those or both or none at your leisure. Now, scalping, just for those who might not know, I'm sure a lot of you know exactly what I'm talking about here, but for those who might not know, in relation to Warhammer 40,000, which is kind of what I'm all about on YouTube, scalping is where you get sellers on platforms such as eBay, for instance, who aggressively buy up products from Games Workshop, and they are normally either limited release products or, more commonly than that, pre-orders. And they will buy those products. They will buy multiples on multiples of those products, and sometimes they will, if there's a limit on the amount you can buy, sometimes the manufacturer, Games Workshop, will limit like 2 or 3 per person, or they will find ways around that by having other accounts and whatnot. And what happens then, of course, is the supply of those miniatures or those products are very quickly exhausted, and Games Workshop effectively sell out. Now, what you get then is 5 seconds later, practically, they'll show up on eBay for massively inflated prices, and it's like eye-watering stuff. It's not just a little bit of a markup, and the whole thing is pretty depressing, and it keeps happening. It's been a theme over the last 6 months or a year in particular, I would say, where it's gotten pretty bad. It's kind of been there for longer than that, but it's gotten worse recently because I think Games Workshop haven't been really getting their production correct on some of their miniatures and items. Now, there may be reasons for that. I'm sure that they've been ramping up production on Leviathan over the last many months to try and get ahead of the game. They don't want to run out of that, right? So they've probably been diverting resources into that, and therefore some of the products have been suffering. So there could be that, and it could be part of their marketing strategy with hype and all the rest of it, although I don't personally buy that, because if it is a marketing strategy, then personally I think it's a really stupid strategy, because all it does is pee people off, basically. It doesn't it doesn't generate any goodwill with the fans, that's for sure, when they have to go and buy things at extortionate prices because they can't get hold of them from Games Workshop because they haven't produced enough. Now, I'm going to use one example in particular, which is a painful example for me. I mean, I've been caught out with this situation more than once, but one time that really hurt was Lion el Jonson. And I really wanted the Lion el Jonson miniature that they released. When they kind of woke him up and then they made like a miniature, didn't they? Lion el Jonson is personally my favourite Primarch, so it was a big deal for me, and I really wanted the miniature. And unfortunately, I was working on the Saturday that he was made available for pre-order, and I stayed up late the night before until 12 and past just to see if it would kind of click over in availability. I got up super early. I'm up early most mornings anyway, 5:30ish for work, but I got up earlier than that to try and see if it had clicked over, which it hadn't. And it was released or made available a bit later in the day, which was useless for me because I was working. I'm a physical therapist. I was in the clinic with people for most of the day, and it's the kind of job where I can't really kind of sneak away in the corner of the room and order Warhammer while someone's on the treatment couch. It doesn't really work that way. So I was kind of screwed. And as far as my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think that miniature kind of sold out within minutes. And, it was always going to, really, unless they really produced more of it. Lion el Jonson's major character is a Space Marine. Space Marines are massively popular in of themselves, and he is a very popular character within it. And it was always going to be a very popular product. And it really annoys me how they just didn't make enough of him. I'm sure it was a deliberate thing because they want to release it as a single miniature later on, but it just annoys me. And You know, as for the scalping situation, well, Lion el Jonson, when he was released, was available for about, I think £65 with his little retinue of blade guard when it was released initially. And, you know, to give you an idea of the kind of markups we're talking about, in case you don't know, eBay, you know, 5 seconds later or whatever, it was on there for the same thing, was on there for, you know, 200, 300, 400 pounds plus. And there were some cheaper examples. I say cheaper, you know, there were some less expensive examples, but that was pretty normal. And even now there's a few floating around. I mean, I saw one on there the other day for £700. You know, I mean, okay, that's someone chancing it, right? They're probably not going to get that. But here's the thing, a lot of people were spending £300 or £400 on it because they disappeared, they sold, you know. And there's no judgment here, by the way, for people who do that. I mean, if you see something, you've missed your opportunity, you see something, you can afford it and you want to buy it, that's totally your business. I hats off to you. So I don't, you know, have anything against the buyers of these products. But one way or another, of course, that gives the scalpers room and license to do what they do. So it's a difficult situation. And you're never really going to change that behavior. You can't change directly that behavior in people. It's a financial opportunity. It does pay off, or it seems to pay off, so people are going to do it. So you can't change it directly. You can't expect human beings to suddenly not do that sort of stuff, because they just will, you know, which is, you know, it's kind of okay to a point. I mean, I don't mind people making a bit of money. I don't mind a little bit of markup here or there, you know, 20%, 30%, maybe even 50%, but this was truly extortionate, and kind of still is. There's still a few available at just silly prices, and it spoils it for the fans, for the people who genuinely want the product for themselves to paint. It just ruins it for everyone, really. And it's a bit too greedy for my liking. As much as I don't mind people making their way and making money, that's just a bit too greedy, especially buying lots up so it stops people buying it. It's depressing. It just gets me down a bit. And I really wish that Games Workshop would take a more leading role in trying to kind of stamp it out. As I said, you can't stop the behavior. You can't stop someone buying something and selling it for more. I mean, it's a free society, and it's not fair, but life's not fair, right? You know, that's the general gist of things. But I think Games Workshop could be more active in trying to stamp this out. They could produce more of miniatures that they know are going to be super popular. I mean, Lion el Jonson, as I said, was always going to be very popular. So even though they were maybe diverting resources to Leviathan, I don't find it a valid excuse if that is the reason why they didn't produce more of him. And if it's any weird marketing strategy, then I'm just missing the point, I think, basically, and I'm just peed off with it. So a bit more of a negative video for me. I'm pretty upbeat generally about Games Workshop and Warhammer, and I generally dislike the channels on YouTube that are always very negative about the whole thing. I don't really want to hear that. So apologies that I feel like I'm going to bring myself down to that level a little bit here, and I'm sorry. My intention is not to get you guys down, but it's frustration on my part, and I just wanted to kind of raise the issue a little bit and see what you guys thought. You know, I'd be really intrigued to hear your comments on it, what you think of the situation. Are you as annoyed as I am, or do you not really care, or have you just washed your hands with Games Workshop? I mean, where are you in all this? I'd love to know. But that brings me to the next stage. The next part of this video, as I said, is me putting together and painting a proxy of, guess who? Lion el Jonson. It's not the best proxy. This is my disclaimer, guys. If you want to switch off now, it's absolutely fine. It's not the best proxy. You'll know it when you see it. It's been around for a few years. It's a bit of a clumsy proxy, in all honesty, and there are definitely better ones that I've seen, but I just didn't really want to spend too much money, simply because I'm fully intending to get the real deal when I can. So this was about 11 or 12 pounds sterling I paid for this on AliExpress. But if you join me in the next screen, I'll put that guy together and paint him up to my normal stellar standard. But yeah, basic tabletop standard paint job, guys, just if you're interested. And yeah, I hope you find it interesting, but don't forget to let me know how you feel about things, and please consider liking and sharing the video if you found it interesting or good. And I always appreciate anyone giving me a sub, any kind of subscriptions. If you're not already subbed, it's much appreciated. So thanks for the support, guys, and I'll catch you in the next screen. Cheers. All right, so here's my cheapy stand-in proxy. A lot of you will recognise this particular miniature. Has been around a little while. A little bit of a size comparison against a Robot Gorilla Man here. A little bit bigger, a little bit bulkier, but within reasonable differences, I would say. So it doesn't really bother me that. And yeah, the whole thing went together fairly well. The base was too small. You can see here, if I compare it to Rebute Gilliman's base, looked much smaller. So I decided to mount it on the same size base as the other Primarch there. Yeah, just wanted some consistency. And yeah, a little bit of tidying up here and there. I don't like working with resin. I'm really camp plastic, but needs must and all that. So just get him down on the base and start building it up. It's really quite self-explanatory. No special instructions required here. I did have to kind of bend the sword gently back into its correct position, and there was enough flexibility for me to do that. I tried to do the same with the wings on the helmet, and they snapped off. So that was more brittle. You've got to be careful with resin, which is why I hate working with it. I had to super glue those back on, but did that easily enough. And yeah, it just kind of came together quite well, really. And there's nothing too much to report. Obviously, super glue required for resin. That's no problem for me because I use it for everything else as well. The bare head's a bit of a clanger. I did consider trying to kind of sculpt a beard on that, but ultimately decided that was a little bit beyond me at this current time. So I went for the helmet, which is pretty nice. So I undercoated the whole thing in Rathbone. I won't talk you through every single step here, guys. It's just a little bit of an interest piece. But I then coated the whole thing in Black Templar. One coat only, which left it a little bit blotchy, but I kind of like that ancient look to the armour. That's what I did with my other Horus Heresy Dark Angels. The cape, I ultimately decided to ditch that. I didn't like it. It was a bit bad, really. So I stole a backpack from an aggressor and put that on there. If you're thinking that's a little low down, it's not in comparison to Rebute Gilliman. Look, you see how low down his power pack is? It's quite deceptive. So there you go. So yeah, I just put it where it wanted to sit most naturally, really. I could have put it higher, but I didn't want to. So I then kind of fill in some details with this nice dark bronzy colour. I wanted a dark feeling to this rather than the kind of gold that a lot of people do on Lion el Jonson. So I know this isn't ideal colour theory here, but I'm not a painting tutor, guys, so just take it with a pinch of salt. A little bit of lead belcher on some selected areas as well, just kind of breaking up the metallics a little bit, and it just lightens it up a little bit in some areas because of that dark bronze. Sword gets a coat of lead belcher initially as well. Moving on, I then actually kind of do the helmet wings with some lead belcher, but you'll see kind of what's going on there a little bit later on if you bear with me. I'm not going to draw this out too long, guys, so bear with me here. And I highlight things with a lighter brass kind of colour. This is Rune Lord brass, just a little bit of a light dusting over, just to bring out that bronze a little bit more. Nothing too technical. Then Flesh Terror's red on a lot of the kind of wings. Anywhere where there's wings, I did that in Flesh Terror's red. This is kind of more Horus Heresy inspired colours, I guess. And then the whole thing got a healthy dose of Null Noil, which is actually the new Null Noil. The first time I've used the new one, it's not as bad as I thought, actually. I still prefer the old one, but it's less of a stain and more of a, it runs into the recesses more readily. I then highlighted the sword on one edge only, just to give it that kind of illusion of like a glimmering sword. Again, nothing too technical here, guys. And then did the same on some of the other metal bits, just kind of highlighted that with that lighter silver colour. And I can't remember what silver I used there, but lighter than lead belcher. And you can see here the edges of the helmet wings. and I did some freehand detailing on the shield there with the writing, and I did the eyes in my usual manner. But if you are interested in seeing it on a rotating platform, that's what's coming up next. Cheers guys, and thanks for watching.